Hi guys, this is Squishy Bee, and today is March 3rd, 2021, and I'd like to pick up today with part 2 of my last video, where I was giving some of my thoughts on the situation with child trafficking and how we can protect our kids from some of the dangers of what's going on out there. And today I'd like to go a little bit further and just give some more tips on parenting in general. And also, the last couple of weeks have been really scary for me. I didn't think I was going to survive, and I don't really know how much more time I'm going to have. The fact that I survived the last week has been nothing short of God jump-starting me, literally, to keep me here until the rapture. That's what I think. So I try not to stress about my health, because I think that God has shown very clearly that He wants me here for something. So because the doctors can't explain why I've been able to survive the stuff that's gone on this last year. And I just point to God. That's why. That's my answer. No medical degree needed. So I just wanted to, because of the fact that I may not have too much more time left, I was thinking one of the things that the Bible tells women that our role should be is to give some direction to younger women who may be parenting or going into parenting. So I thought this might be a good time to add a few tips on parenting to those of you who may be able to use this right now, especially when people are home with their kids and things might be a little bit more stressful than usual during this crazy pandemic stuff. First, let me just give you this disclaimer, okay? I was a terrible parent, all right? I was not a true believer at that point, and so I was just kind of stumbling around guessing at how to parent, okay, not having a proper example through my childhood, but more importantly, I didn't have biblical knowledge. So tip 1, include God in your parenting and in your marriage. The more you know the Bible, the more you teach your kids the Bible, the better everything will be. Okay, I wish I had known that back then. I mean, I taught my kids the basic Bible stories and taught them Bible songs and stuff, but because I didn't really have a true grasp of what being saved really was, I knew that I believed in God and I knew that I wanted to know more, but for some reason I just didn't have a proper foundation, and I didn't have a correct church to go to that was teaching me the true doctrine of grace. So I was just trying all these different churches, and none of them were a correct fit. They were all really bad examples of churches, and I started to get really discouraged. And it wasn't until years later that I actually learned the proper doctrine, and then I just couldn't get enough, and I was just constantly wanting to learn and reading and following channels where they were teaching dispensations, and everything clicked and I understood. So I just wish that I had done that sooner, but you can't go back. We all we're just doing the best that we had with what we had at the time, but what I can do is possibly give tips to those based on my mistakes, and hopefully it will help others to not make those same mistakes. So, tip 2, remember that at all times your kids are listening to how you talk, how you treat each other, how you treat others, and this is critical. I wish that I had really had this in my mind when my kids were little. They will remember it forever, trust me. Expect them to throw it in your face constantly for years until they've got their own kids, and then they really kind of understand this is kind of harder than they thought, right? So just pay attention to what they're doing nearby, because they will listen and you won't know that they're actually listening. and from a distance. It's amazing. I've seen this happen with my own kids. I've seen it happen with my grandson, because they will just, even when they're very little, will just repeat back something that they heard, and you're like, oh, I didn't have any idea they were listening to that. And then it's too late. They've already heard it. You can't take it back. And their little minds process these things at a time when it's crucial, because this is when they're learning if they watch and mimic everything that you do as a parent. So it's really important that you live by example. So that's tip 3. Live by example the best you can. If you watch horror movies, listen to music, singing about sex, drugs, and degrading women, etc., okay, then they're going to think that that's okay. And they'll grow up that way. You may be, a newborn baby Christian that doesn't really yet know why that isn't a good idea to do these things. But one day you may become a matured Christian and realize too late. And then the damage is already done, not only to yourself, but to those who are listening in your family. It's really hard to reverse this mindset, right? Because they're already getting all this from school and other kids and TV and music and their iPads and games and all kinds of technology where Satan is just bombarding them day in and day out with these terrible things. So it takes even more work as a parent to undo that brainwashing, that programming that they're getting. You have to work double time to try to replace that and explain to them early that this stuff that's going on may seem fun and it's made to be a trap and to trick you, and explain kind of the best you can in age-appropriate discussion on how Satan works without going overboard. Because I can tell you from, I don't know if you heard me talk about this before, but during my childhood, when I was dealing with all of this abuse and Satanism and all of that, God was putting these Christian families in my path where I was just drawn to these other kids, because I was so amazed at how different their household structure was, and perplexed, because this was so different from what I was used to. So I was always wanting to hang out with those kids, and I remember a lot of them, they were extremely strict and went overboard sometimes. And to me, that was just like no big deal, because you hadn't seen overboard, okay? Because when you come from Satanic Ritual Abuse, nothing that any other punishment any other kid in the neighborhood is getting is going to compare, right? So I just remember talking to a lot of these kids when they were grown up and running into them later, and they wondering, wow, I wonder what they turned out to be like, because they had grown up in this completely different household that was more of a Christian structure, and they had rebelled completely. They were not what I expected at all. So then that also went into my mindset. I was still very young at the time when I ran into these people, and so then I thought, wow, neither way it was working. So I think that was something, again, that Satan was just putting in my path to just confuse me all the more, because I know that if you teach kids the right way, that they will remember that, and you live by example. But if there are parents that are saying no, 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 no all the time, going overboard and abusing their position of authority, then these kids are going to resent that. And so it's really important. One of the scriptures that I think you need to remember is the one that talks about don't provoke your children to wrath. And this is a spot where I just wanted to mention something that's been bothering me. I had recommended a channel because there was this, there's this pastor Michael Pearl, and I don't generally talk about other people in a negative way because I think it's really important. And this guy clearly believes in the Lord, and he has done some amazing work in missionary work, and so I definitely respect that a great deal. And I love listening to his stories, missionary stories and everything. But I had recommended him before reading his books on parenting. And I ran across this the other day and was just mortified because I very much disagree with what he was teaching on parenting. It seems to me like he was taking the spare the rod, spoil the child thing a little too far, and was forgetting the part where, one, you're supposed to not provoke your children to wrath, and the things he was doing and recommending definitely was breaking that rule. And I know just from someone who was abused what that does to kids, and that's going to push them away from the Lord. So I'm very sorry that I had recommended that. And, the other thing is the way that I believe he was treating his wife was not right, and recommending that to other people. I am a firm believer in following the Lord's plan for us and what we're meant to do in our roles in a household. And I do agree that the woman is supposed to be submissive to the father, and then the husband. The father hands over the daughter to the husband when they get married. But the husband is to love the wife. And there was a lot of things going on there that did not seem like that was going on. It was a lot of degrading stuff. They're taking advantage of your position of authority in the household is not part of that plan, I don't believe. But you are to love the wife, and that's a really tall order, and that will show if you are actually loving the wife. That will show in your behavior, and that what was going on there did not seem like that to me. So I want to apologize for having recommended this. I mean, I feel like there is very few people out there that you can listen to that you will agree with everything. There are some really good pastors, really good evangelists and missionaries out there that have a lot of really good stuff, and then there'll be something that you might find and you just don't, the Holy Spirit leads you another way, that this is just not something that I agree with. But that doesn't mean that you have to throw away the baby with the bathwater. I think you can eat the fish and spit out the bones. Unless it is false doctrine of salvation, some really significant things that seem demonic, you need to then avoid these people altogether. But there's some people out there that I really like that have mostly really good teachings, but they just maybe have one thing that I disagree with, that it seems to be more of a misinterpretation of the scriptures. And I think a lot of that sometimes comes from just their experiences have been different in their life. And so they just were taught, and a lot of them were taught by the same person. And so they believed a lot of that word for word, and sometimes the teacher's wrong sometimes. And so you just have to pray about it, that God give you wisdom on it. Or maybe we're wrong. Maybe they're right and we're wrong. But certain things you just have to kind of ask the Lord to guide you and give you wisdom on and discernment on whatever that is. But for this situation, I just wanted to apologize about that, because I should have read their books before recommending them, because I hadn't at all. I just saw that they had them, and I assumed that because of all of the other stuff being so appropriate and proper gospel teachings, that I thought that it probably would have been the same. you think you can get a kind of feel for somebody, but man, was I ever wrong about that part. It's amazing how someone could be so, I don't know what the word is, but I feel like I was so deceived by them being one way one moment and then to be so completely different another. And I feel like I have a pretty good, I'm fairly good at reading people usually. But again, this is another reason why I believe women are supposed to be under the protection of the men, because women are more easily deceived. We're emotional beings, and that's needed to be a mom. We need to have that to be nourishing and a support role for the husband. The husband has less emotional, traits, because they are needed to be strong, and they can't be emotional to be able to do the things that men have to do. That's why we're made differently. So women should not try to force men to be more like women, and men shouldn't try to force women to be more like men, because we just are not made that way. And God makes that very clear in the Bible. Both traits are needed for good parenting as well. That's why it's really tough when it's a single parent situation. It's really helpful to have kids to see what a proper Christian male role model is, and have example to follow, and a proper Christian mom role. They should be able to follow that. So it's really important as us, with having children being on loan to us from God, that we know that in everything that we do, that we're conscious of everything we do, that they're watching, and that what we do is important, and we may only get one shot at it. Because if we do something really significant that they watch us, they may then not trust you, or if they know and they're learning the Bible and they know that what you're doing is wrong, then that ruins trust. And trust is the most important thing. That's why lying is such a terrible thing to have in any household. Lying is probably the worst thing you can do, no matter how small a lie, because it ruins trust. And trust is so important in any role in the household. And if I could give any advice on that, it would be very conscious of telling the truth, no matter what it is. If you think you're going to get in trouble for it, whether you're the child or you're the parent or you're the wife or you're the husband, and you just don't want to deal with getting yelled at for whatever you did, then remember that the cover-up is always worse than the crime. Okay? And wives, try not to overreact to when your husbands mess up, because they're going to mess up. And husbands, try not to overreact when your wives mess up, because when we overreact, the other spouse is more likely to be tempted to lie next time, because they know that you're going to flip out. I'm saying this from experience, okay? Because I used to flip out over really stupid stuff, and still to this day sometimes flip out. That's something that is hard to undo. That for one, I have damaged the front part of my brain from a car accident, and that was one of the things that were damaged. So it's really hard for me, because I have that thing where I will speak before I think, and I also have such bad brain damage that if somebody is talking to me too quickly while other things are going on in the room, my brain short circuits, and my first response is frustration and to lash out of defense. And like I'm stuck in this fight or flight thing, and it's something I can't control with my brain. So I'm so grateful to have a husband that's patient, because he understands that to a degree, but he's also kind of a spaz and speaks really quickly. He gets very excited and talks very quickly, and I can't keep up, especially the more my brain is damaged. I can't, having a really hard time following. So I do really well when it's quiet and there's nothing else going on. But if there's a TV going, or two people are talking at once, forget it. My brain just shuts down, and I just can't follow. So anyway, these are just a few. There's a little bit of testimony and a little bit of tips all in one here. So let's see, what was I on? Tip 4. I think I was talking about the live by example thing. Next, tip 4, spend time cherishing your kids. Kids are a gift on loan, like I said, from God. They're entrusted in our care. Remember that. Okay? Don't stick them in front of a TV or some other technology for long periods of time. It's easy to do when you're busy and you don't really have the time. But it's really important. That is something Satan is notorious for. Okay? That technology is definitely his playground, and he knows it. And so it's really easy to put them there because it's like a babysitter. But that is the world's worst babysitter, because it's going to fill their minds with terrible things. And who knows what kind of, stuff is coming off of these devices that is affecting their bodies over time with, invisible waves of energy. And, I don't know the science of it, but I know that I've seen a lot of stuff that talks about the effects of Wi-Fi, being in front of Wi-Fi for too long. And now they're just upping it to this 5G, and I think that that's going to be even worse. And we have really just seen this huge burst of technology in recent years, and we don't know exactly what the effects of that's going to be down the road on these little kids, because their brains are developing, and people are putting very young children putting an iPad in their hand, and I just don't think it's healthy for them, on top of the fact that it's just not good for them to do that. They need to get physical activity. They need to run out their energy, and sometimes it's really hard, especially if you have health issues, and it's hard to, you don't have the energy, or you're depressed because of everything that's going on. It's hard to have the energy to get outside and let them play, but it's really important somehow. Even if you have to hire somebody to come and, if you are physically unable to do it, sit in a chair and hire someone to get out there and teach your kids soccer or some sort of tutor, something to get them out there doing some sort of physical activity with them. It's really important, because also on top of the fact that the obesity issue in this country especially is because of these kids sitting down in front of TVs and playing video games for hours on end. And you can't take it back. Once they get that lifestyle, you're teaching them from childhood a lifelong habits. And it's really important that they learn how important it is to have routine of getting your responsibilities done first, and that includes whatever that may be in your household, of chores and what, not overboard, okay, not overboard, because then they will resent it again and rebel, but some sort of something that they get into a routine that is appropriate for their age and get them into that habit, and then some sort of physical activity. Make it something fun. There's, even if you insist on TV and stuff, then find some sort of YouTube sing-along, dance-along thing and get them doing that every day. Some sort of routine, because now people are home with their kids and they're not getting the social interaction with other kids that they normally would. So try to see if you can get other kids to come over and do some sort of physical activity with them, with other kids. Do something where they're learning social behavior, because that's, again, really important. And right now is such a weird time with this pandemic that kids can't really have the chance to be around other kids. And look up some ideas on fun things to do with the kids, and have them come over, buy some sort of fun little prizes and do some games with your child and some of their other child-aged friends. I don't know, that's not the right words, but kids I'm sorry, I'm having brain damage problems this week. Some other kids their age, bring them over, have some fun activities like where you write little notes. This is just one example that I used to do with my kids. Write a note that's like a age-appropriate puzzle for them to figure out, like a little short little question that they have to figure out, and it'll lead them to something else in the house or in the yard that they have to then go. When they figure that out, then they have to go find that item. And then at that item will be another note with another little puzzle. And then they figure that, it'll lead them to another one, and do this for, 8 or so, not too many, different places. And then at the end, there's a prize. And that's just one little thing that you can do, that you can get prizes at the Dollar Tree. Okay, you don't have to be rich to do this. Or it could be some sort of treat, or, it could be a toy, it doesn't matter, something. And you can get, for $10, you can get 10 different prizes and have different games, each with a prize at the end. So each kid gets a prize. And, make it so that they can all play, but they can only all each win one prize, so that everybody gets one. And have, a group of friends, it doesn't have to be 10. Just have a small group of kids over. Obviously make sure that it's safe, that nobody's sick. Or do stuff outside so it's safer. You're not in an enclosed area right now where they're breathing into the same air. If you feel better, do stuff outside, appropriate to your temperature and climate. Right now, there's snow where we are, so there's all kinds of outdoor snow things you can do with kids. I know we're tired and dragging butt right now, but get out there and find something to do with your kids to keep them busy, okay? And remember that, any day could be your last day with your kids, one way or another. And even if we're raptured, okay, the structure in heaven is going to be different. This is a very special time when you have your kids in this type of life. And you're not going to have this type of family structure when we go to heaven, the Bible says. So cherish every moment that you have with them. And also, if we're here for a while, you want them to have good memories of you when they were little. They will remember that, and then they will then pass that on to their kids, and they'll remember the things that you did when they were little, and they will then do those things with their kids. It doesn't matter if you had a horrible childhood. Break that cycle. Be the generation that changes and breaks that cycle. I didn't have, any kind of stuff like that. When I was a kid, my whole life was just sheer terror and fear, and I had no idea what to do with myself, even when I did have any kind of free time, where I could do whatever I wanted. But then I was just free with no supervision, and all kinds of terrible things ran amok because nobody had any idea where I was or what I was doing, and so when I grew up and had kids of my own, I wanted to spend time with them and do things because I knew how much that hurt me to not have parents that seemed like they cared about me. And I wanted to make sure my kids remembered that I would take the time to do things to make memories, because the tiniest little good thing that did happen in my childhood, that's the thing I held on to when times were bad. I would go back to that fond memory of that one thing when I was a kid. For me, it was Christmas. So it was always, that was the one thing that I did have good memories of when I was a kid that I can remember. And because I know I'm missing a lot of memories from childhood because I've blocked out a lot of my childhood. But those are the one things that I would hold on to. So I I wanted my kids to have lots of memories like that. So I tried to do lots of things with them so that they could have all kinds of things to go back and say, remember when we did this? And I could always tell them when they were feeling down, remember these things that we did and how fun it was. And we just kind of go over it and look at the pictures and stuff to try to cheer them up. And I hope that they will do those things then with their kids. And then their kids will do it with their kids. So that's just one idea. And spend as much time finding out what their interests are and explore that with them. This week it might be one thing and next week it's something else. Don't force them into your interests. Let them be them. That doesn't mean let them do sinful things, okay? I don't mean that. But I mean, if your thing is baseball, but they indicate that their thing this week is bugs, okay? Then go explore bugs, all right, whether you like it or not. God creates each of us with unique talents and gifts. Love your kids unconditionally and let them figure out what theirs is, all right? Make sure your burdens don't become their burdens. This is tip number 5. That's something that I really wish I could go back and change, because I was sick for my kids' entire life. My youngest daughter was about 2 when I got really sick, and she never knew me before I was sick. All of my kids had to really deal with things that kids should never have to deal with. I did my best given how sick I always was, and then having to go through 2 horrible car accidents where I had, nurses coming to the house every day, and I had to kind of learn how to do things all over again, physical therapy and occupational therapy and all that stuff. But keep in mind that even though I had to go through all of that, I still managed to go from start to finish learning martial arts, all the way through to where I was not only instructor, but I had my own schools, several of them, and taught martial arts 6 days a week, despite having not even been able to walk, or I had to learn basically how to do everything all over again. And I made it all the way through to that point. So I'm hoping that my kids saw that and learned that you can get through anything if you put your mind to it. Now, what I wish that I had acknowledged back then was that I needed God. And I was putting a lot of my faith in my own determination, because I kind of always had to. I had to rely on me because nobody else was going to help me. So I had that attitude that I had to do this myself, or it was never going to get done. And it also made me feel because I had to do these things despite how sick I was, I found that I had very little empathy and pity for other people that complained and didn't want to do stuff for what I felt was really trivial stuff, because I had the attitude of, do you see what I have to do every day despite all of this? And that was wrong. That was really not the right way to do things. And I'm sure that they resented that over time, because I forced them to do like a drill sergeant, you can do this. If I can do this, you can do this kind of thing. And I put a lot of burdens on them in that way. And again, that was because I didn't know better. I really didn't know better. I had, not to make excuses, but I had this horrendous upbringing that just didn't install proper information for parenting. You know what I mean? And I didn't have the Lord at that point. So I didn't really, I should have been, instead of relying on myself and my own determination, I should have been relying on the Lord and thanking the Lord for every step along the way. Even though I was praying every day, there's something very different when you have a proper relationship with God and understand the proper salvation, which I didn't. I was just kind of going through the motions of this Christian title, but I really wasn't. I don't think I was really understanding salvation back then. So I feel like if I could do it, but part of me wonders, I don't know, maybe I was just such a baby Christian that you couldn't even tell that I was a Christian, because I was still very much in the world back then and doing all kinds of worldly things, because that's all I knew. But it wasn't until I started reading the Bible and understanding, oh, you're actually supposed to kind of come out of this world system. And as I started doing that, my life changed drastically. And when I started actually understanding the Bible and dispensations and everything, my entire life changed. It's insane. And I'm hoping that my children and my family see the difference in that, and then realize, and I believe that that is the case, that they could see the difference, because rather than trying to bring me back into the world like it used to be, they now have started coming into my world now, which is a true miracle, because I stood my ground. I tried to do it in a loving way, in a patient way, and I think that is what worked, because at some point I was trying to force them. I was desperately trying to drag them into my world, and it just wasn't working. But instead, I patiently waited. I started to realize that I couldn't drag them into this new world of Christianity that I was in, that was different than the Christianity that they had known. And I had to slowly deprogram them from the stuff that they were being bombarded with from Satan day after day. And so I just tried to be really patient, the way God is patient with us, the way God had been patient with me for all that time. And, I let the Holy Spirit guide me, and then I would always ask the Holy Spirit to speak through me when I was talking to them, because for a long time, once I started learning all of this stuff, I wanted to tell them everything. And you can't just come at people with all this stuff, especially when you're dealing with Bible prophecy and the end times and all of this stuff. And you learn it and you're like, oh, I'm going to tell everybody. You just want to tell them all this stuff, and you just can't do that. It's like when you see a fawn in the wild and you want to feed them, and you know that, the mom is nowhere near and they're on their own, and you want to help them. But if you come at them, here, take this food, take it. They're going to run. They're going to run away. They'll be like, what? This lady's crazy. But if you just put your hand slowly out and you offer a little bit of food, and you just patiently wait, eventually they'll come and take it from you. If you're gentle and kind and patient, they will come to you. And that's what I learned. It just took me a while to do that, because first I did scare them away and they ran off, and they're like, it took them a long time. They would come back a little bit, and then I would still kind of, it took me several times to realize, because it's hard when you have all this information, you want to get it out. You want to tell them about all this stuff. But over time, it was just this back and forth of, you come into my world. No, you come into my world. And it just went back and forth. And I just stood my ground, and I just shared gently the good things of my world more than the scary stuff that's going around, saying, look at all this crazy stuff. This is why all this is going on. Instead, I found that I had to share, look at all this amazing stuff that's happening in my life and what God has done for me. I started sharing miracle stories and things that were going on in my life and the life of others because of prayer and things, rather than sharing the crazy news that's going on in the world that they weren't hearing in mainstream news. I was sharing the real news that we know behind the scenes, and how this is stuff coming from the Bible. And that worked much better. And then over time, then everything started happening and that was undeniable. And that's why so many people are coming to Christ now, because they can't deny all this stuff happening around them is biblical. And then at that point, then they realize that you are the one that, with the knowledge. And so then they started to come to you and then ask you questions. And you patiently answer one question at a time without being like, and then blah, 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 blah. You can't just add all this other stuff. You just answer one question at a time. Let them come to you. And then you drop it. And then you wait. And then they'll come to you with something else. And then you answer that patiently and kindly without going overboard. And then they'll take that in, give them time to absorb each thing, and let them come to you again. And with respect to the idea that you don't want to let your burdens become your children's burdens, try not to talk to your children like they're an adult. Don't talk to them about your problems. Don't talk about your problems with your spouse in front of them. Let them be kids, because they overhear everything that you're saying. And right now people are probably stressed out about money. They're stressed out about maybe being out of work or the pandemic, and talking about whether or not to, take the vaccine. All these things are scary to kids. They don't really understand what's going on, and they're too little to have to deal with that. So I think we should just try to wait until they're out of the way, sleeping for the night, and just talk quietly when they're not around. You would be surprised how much they will listen to everything that you're saying, and how they will process it differently than we can comprehend. And it can affect their entire life. Let me just give you a little bit of testimony of something that happened with me. One of my daughters was very, very sensitive, and we were the best of buds when she was growing up. And but she took everything very hard when I was sick, and she didn't ever want to burden me with her issues because she felt like it would make me sicker. And I think part of that came from times of me being just too sick to deal with stuff. And if my kids were doing what kids do, as teenagers and what have you, where they argue over every little thing or whatever, I at times was just like, I can't do this right now. I'm just too sick. It literally would make me very sick, but it was a struggle to try to not put that off on them, even though the stress of arguing over stuff all the time was very detrimental to my health. But that's just too bad, because their kids are going to be kids. And but that was just a challenge. And so I found out later on, as she grew older, that she often was having issues and just didn't tell me. She didn't want to upset me, even though I could have dealt with it. Even stuff that was things that I, of course, would have just helped her with. And it wasn't something I would have been angry with or anything. She didn't want to burden me over anything, because she was too afraid that I was just too sick to handle the least little thing. But now I am so sad at when I hear the things that she tried to do on her own back then, without telling me. And I will never get over that. And she still to this day doesn't like to ask for help. And it's because of that. Like, it's still, obviously I'm still sick. She doesn't want to tell me her issues. And then I have another daughter that has lupus, and she needs a listening ear. And I'm sure that there are times that she doesn't tell me things because she doesn't want to add to my stress. But that just makes me so much more sad, because I want to be there for my kids, and stressful or not, that's what we're here for each other. So, and the same goes for any of you. If anyone needs prayer or just wants somebody to talk to, please don't ever hesitate to ask me, because you'd be surprised how much stress I can take. It really, God does not give us more than we can handle. That's what I truly believe. That he's shown me that numerous times where I do have a lot of issues, but I believe that it's kind of like a spiritual boot camp. I just have accepted my fate because I believe that this is building some sort of character trait, or it is going to be used for either my good or God's glory or the good of someone else. Sometimes it's not something we'll see right away, and one day we'll see and look back and find out why we have all these problems, and be like, oh, okay, now I understand. Because we see through a dark glass, and don't really know it's the only part of the picture. And God sees the whole picture from start to finish, and He knows what He's doing. And we just have to kind of trust that. So it's always good to teach our kids that too. Trust the Lord. Don't worry about what it's going to do to me or what's going to do to anything. Just trust the Lord. And I wish that I had instilled that more in my kids and showed that more by example when I was younger. But I myself, back then, I wasn't trusting in the Lord. I was trusting in myself. I was trusting in my own strength. Like I had no choice, but I had to just suck it up and carry on. And, we don't need to do that. Because, we have this, God is there the whole time. He's this amazing being that made the whole universe. And He's following along behind us, just watching, our puny, weak bodies push this, enormous boulder of snow up a hill. Okay, He's just waiting there patiently. Once in a while, He says, can I help you with that? But we say, no, I could do it myself. So He just patiently waits and watches as this, the snow boulder gets bigger and bigger, picking up snow. But He gently asks, hey, now can I help? And we're still like, no, I could do it myself. And, we look at ourselves for a minute, and notice that we are just have this mess all of our clothes because this snow has kicked up all this mud all over our clothes. And doesn't matter. We just tell ourselves, I just need to be stronger. With determination, I can do it, And our snowball is now so big. And we have even rolled over other people and caught them up in our big snowball. And there's arms and legs kicking and screaming. No matter. We stubbornly just go back to pushing it up the big hill. And then just one day, it's so heavy we can't push it we can't budge it at all. Won't move. So then we stop. Now what? Only then do we notice all the other people sticking out of our snowball and realize that we had just rolled right over them and didn't notice. So we stop and look around. Did we look behind us to find that God gave up and was no longer following behind us? No. He's still right there, patiently waiting. Not only is He right there, but He's, that loving smile on His face with His arms stretched out for a big hug. Now can I help? Yes, Lord, please help me. This is just too heavy for me. And look, I've caught up all these other people in my big heavy snowball. I didn't mean to, but they just kind of got dragged along with it, But no big heavy snowball is too much for Jesus, right? He just picks it up, digs out all the people and stuff sticking out of it. And then not only does He clean you up, but He cleans off all the people you messed up along the way. Why? Simply because you had figured out that you needed Him to. Okay? You believed He could. And what's most important, you let Him. Okay? You let Him. Just like, we as parents want to be loved and feel needed by our kids, we have a Father in heaven who also just wants to be loved and needed, right? The whole reason why we exist is because God could do anything He wanted to, but what He wanted most of all was buddies, right? When our kids are little, they want to do everything themselves, right?
This one for me. Uh-oh. I gotta clean that. I will build it. Uh-oh, I built.
They might spill a lot of orange juice before making some into the glass, a little bit into the glass, which they feel victorious for them, even though there's orange juice all over the, the table. But, we could just grab it easily and just be like, give me that, you're making a mess, right? But we don't. Sometimes the only way that they'll learn is if we just kind of let them do it, right? They're going to make a mess. And that's what happens with us. We make a mess of our lives. And sometimes God just kind of lets us do it. We have to make mistakes, learn from them, and grow, right? So don't be too hard on your kids. Don't be too hard on yourself for your past mistakes, because parenting or anything else, right? Because it's all part of the process of growing and learning. God loves you. I love you. We're all in this together, right? I believe with all my heart, more every day, that we are so close to the rapture. Any second we could get caught up in the air and changed into our glorified bodies and be in paradise. Every day I'm in pain. I'm struggling more and more to just make it through each night because of this horrible rare disease where basically if I sleep, I die. Okay, my brain shuts down. And it's called autonomic dysfunction for those of you who don't know. And it's varies per person that have it. But with me, when my brain shuts down to sleep, especially if I'm really overtired and I've overdone it that day, it'll turn off. Like it malfunction and turn off. And the sympathetic nervous system that you have, the part that controls your the types of stuff that happens in your body that you don't have to think about for it to work, like your blood pressure, your heart, your breathing, temperature, like your digestive tract, that sort of thing. Those all, normally you don't have to think about it, right? But for people with this kind of dysfunction, mine, it doesn't understand. It's kind of messed up. And so when I go to sleep, it just shuts down. And sometimes my blood pressure will drop down to nothing. And if my husband didn't wake me up when this was happening, it would shut off. I would crash all the way and die. My heart rate drops down to almost nothing. And then I will get this really strange sensation that I never explained this to someone before because I've always thought people would think I was crazy. And it wasn't until recently that I actually heard a specialist in this describe it. I've always had this thing where when I would start to fall asleep, I would get this painful shock sensation all over my body that would shock me back awake. And I would start to fall asleep and it would shock me back awake again. But it would feel like I was falling, like endless falling, and then it would shock me out of that. And I found out that what that actually is your brain's last-ditch effort to say, hey, wake up, you're going to die. Because I was dying. The falling thing was me dying. And so the shocking thing, as painful as it is, it was saving my life. It was like being shocked with shocker panels. That's how amazing, really, God has made our brains. That it knows enough to save itself like that. It's horrible. It's a horrible condition to have. Also, other people just stop breathing. Some people have more problems with the blood pressure. Other people stop breathing, so they have to be like on a BiPAP or vent in order to not die in their sleep from the stopping breathing. And I also had seizures and all kinds of stuff. My blood pressure was super high during the day, and then it would drop at night. Well, this last week, it was doing crazy highs in the middle of the night. Also, like, it was over 200, and the bottom number was 150. And then it dropped to, like, 60 over 40 within minutes. It was just the craziest thing. And then I was having chest pain and stuff that I don't normally have. And so what I ended up finding out was that I had this high potassium because I have kidney disease. I'm in kind of the last stages of kidney disease because of the blood pressure crashing damages your kidneys and your brain and everything because you're not getting enough oxygen when this happens. So your kidneys can't process things like potassium. So I didn't realize this, and this is all new to me. So I found out afterwards that you can't, when you have this, you can't eat things at all that have potassium in it. And there's a lot of things with potassium. I never realized how many things, like potatoes, tomatoes, and it actually made me realize that I had this friend that lived a couple apartments down before we moved to this house, that I was always trying to make sure that this kid was doing all right, because he lived by himself. He was on dialysis for like 10 hours a day or something. And one day he was just gone, and we didn't know what happened to him, and he was in the hospital, and his cousin lived on the other side of us, so we asked him how he was doing, and they didn't think he was going to make it through the week. And we had no idea what happened. He was on the registry to get a new kidney, but he couldn't find a match. And they said something about that someone had given him a tomato plant to grow. And so he grew this tomato plant, and he had a tomato on it, and he took one slice of this tomato and put it on his sandwich, and that's what put him in the hospital. And we could not understand what the heck they were talking about until this happened to me. And they had said one slice of tomato almost killed him. He almost died, and we didn't understand that it's the potassium in the tomato. One slice of tomato had so much potassium, enough that with your kidneys not working, it was too much in his system. And the potassium is what affects your heart rate, your rhythm. And so I had been having these like heart palpitations, like where my heart was skipping beats, and it would stop, and then it would like beat really fast to try to catch back up, and then it would go back to normal for a few minutes, and then it would do it again, like in this cycle. And it did this for like every day, all day long, and I don't want to go to the hospital. I keep feeling like if I go to the hospital, I'm not there. I'll never leave, because every time I go, they want to keep me, because it's like this endless problem that can't be fixed, and they want to just watch me. But I mean, I'd rather be home and be able to do stuff like this, be able to spend time with my family, because I know they've already told me they can't fix this, but they just want to kind of watch it, and so that if this happens, I don't know what they would do, but in the hospital you're closer to other COVID patients and stuff. I don't want to deal with that, and I don't know, a lot of crazy things have been going in the hospitals lately. I've been hearing really horrible stories from other people, because my daughter was a charge nurse, registered nurse, and she was in a car accident and had brain injury, so she's not working anymore. But she still is in touch with a lot of her nurse friends, and she hears some horrible stories that are going on because of COVID. So I would have to be unconscious, and they would drag me off to the hospital for me to go anymore, and all week it's been every day of the doctors, a different specialist calling me in. Why aren't you in the hospital? Why aren't you there? And I just keep explaining the same thing. But, if this, I have a feeling that I may have had some little heart attacks the other night, because it was this exact symptoms of a heart attack where, I got this, like that horrible squeezing pain in the center of my chest, and then I would immediately feel like I was going to throw up, and pain on my arm, and then my hand went all numb. And this happened like maybe 3 times, and then it stopped. And this all happened after my blood pressure had been crashing really low. So what they were saying is they thought that it was not enough blood flow to my heart, and that after that I was having all these other neurological things, so they think that I may have had like a too long of a period of time without oxygen to my brain, and because I had all these strokes, because of the high blood pressure and stuff, they were like, well, maybe you're having brain damage from the low blood pressure as well. So I've been just kind of trying to rest this past week, and which is hard for me because I'm kind of a spaz. It's really hard for me to sit still. But anyway, so I apologize that I haven't been around. But nonetheless, I'm going to try to stay here as long as I can, and I'm trying to do videos. A lot of the stuff that takes a lot of my time is trying to find pictures to demonstrate what I'm saying and everything, and that takes a lot of time, more time than I probably should. And so I probably should just kind of do more of a podcast sort of thing sometimes when I'm going to be talking like this forever, because otherwise I'm not able to get out as much as I'd like to. So I think that's probably what this is going to be. It's going to be, like the end of this video is probably going to be more of a podcast without pictures, because this is turning out to be very long, and I think that for me to have to find pictures for all of it, I'm probably not going to get it out for a long time, and I don't know that I have a long time left. So I've been having chest pain all morning on top of this, so what I'm thinking is I probably had some little like mini heart attacks that are probably going to lead up to a big one. So I may end up in the hospital if I, if it gets worse, or one of these episodes of the crashing thing ends up where my husband's just like, no, I'm taking you whether you like it or not, because I talk him out of it. I always try to get him to, respect my wishes of I don't want to go, because for one, you can't take anybody can come to visit you or anything. You can't have anyone. I don't know what it's like in the other hospitals, but in your state, but in my area, nobody can come in to see you, and they're really busy, and they never give you your medications on time, which really messes me up. And they don't know this rare disease, so they do things that make it worse. And because my specialists that I see, they know more. They've been following me for a long time, but the actual people in the hospital, they have no idea how to deal with something that's so rare. So they were trying things that were making me crash, and then they wouldn't watch me. They would just leave. And I'm like, I'm telling you, what you're giving me right now is going to drop my blood pressure to deadly levels. And oh, that won't happen. Okay, sure enough, but they just leave. And half the time they don't even have you connected to stuff, so they can't watch you. It's I don't know what's going on. We have the worst healthcare in our area. I would really love to go live down south, because we had, when we were on our honeymoon and we were down there for a couple of months, I got the best health care I've ever had in my whole life. I wish that we could go down there, but I would have to bring all my family. I couldn't leave my family multiple states away up here in this horrible state and then, go live 12 hours away. So, but I would love to do that. Get everybody to come with me. So anyways, I'm rambling, but I just wanted to share that with you, because you never know when I might not get a chance to do that. Hopefully this information might help somebody out there, a new parent or somebody who is struggling with parenting right now. Just know that God is with you, and just don't forget to bring Him into your decision making, because He will help you and guide you. He's just waiting for you to ask, and ask for wisdom on everything, and keep doing it, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time. You might not get an answer right away, but just don't be discouraged. Keep talking to Him, because it might be a process that He's working on, or wait for something that is down the road. So, and please, again, let me know if you guys have any prayer requests, because I'm here unable to do a lot of the stuff I normally would be doing. So I'm even more available for prayer if you need it. So don't hesitate to ask. Okay, guys, hopefully by the time I go to upload another video, we'll be in heaven and be talking to each other in person, because we get raptured. Maybe my grandson's March 7th date, if you remember that. Maybe that'll be actually true. It's crazy how many things have been coming up with that whole 88 thing. If you haven't seen that, go back and look at the video where I talked about that, because I have seen so many additional weird coincidences with that whole 88 thing and the March 7th thing. But I don't know. We don't know, but it's just fun to look at all of the possibilities and look forward to the day that we all get caught up in the air and we get to go and celebrate in our mansions. All right, guys, I love you. God bless you. Until next time, I'll be seeing you. Bye-bye.